Welcome to another episode of the Afterlife podcast. This is your host, Pooja Chilukuri. My guest today is Stephen Noack. Steve is an NDE survivor, speaker, and a healing facilitator. He has shared both his healing and speaking gifts at conferences for the International Association of Near-Death Studies in North Carolina, Phoenix, and the Hart Center. He has been a guest on radio programs such as Coast to Coast Radio and Horsefly Chronicles. He shares his gifts both internationally and locally in the world, helping people to experience their own unique potential to heal. And I'm delighted that he has taken the time to be here today to share not only his experiences across the veil on the other side, but also all that he has learned about healing. So thank you for joining me today, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited because I've met you in person and heard your story in person, and I really wanted to bring that to my audience. So take it away and just start from wherever you need to.
Sure. It's probably most appropriate that I start with the NDE at 4, because that's kind of what caused everything, I believe. But it's important to let people know that I was 4. I had this amazing experience. I tried to talk about it. No one wanted to hear it. It made me feel funny. I learned to shut it down for quite a few years until the voice returned to me, and then it was game on, so to speak. So I had the experience at 4. I knew something had happened, incredible. I was trying to recall what that was, and at 4 years old, that's difficult. And so what I can tell viewers is it's like trying to remember what you ate last month for lunch on a Wednesday. You know you had lunch, but you're like, what did I have for lunch? And so it was like that for a few years, until like age 10 or 11. So from 4 to 10, it was all emotional. When I would think about it, my body would respond. I'd have little clues here and there. But about 11, I started to get the memories coming back in. And I'll tell you how the NDE itself went. I'm driving my big wheel, and for me, it's like a blur. I'm across the street from my house, and my brother's standing at the edge of the road and across the street, and he says it's time to come home. We're going to go to the mall. And instantly, my brain lights up with toys. Of course, so I just went down the driveway. I went in between 2 parked cars, and there was a car coming down the road, and the car hit me. And kept going because I was so small and she was drinking. She didn't know she actually hit me. And so she kept going, and basically I missed the tires and I went underneath the vehicle. And so now my big wheel is stuck under the back tire, and it's the only thing that's keeping me from getting run over. So she continues going for another 25, 30 feet until people in the neighborhood had jumped out and stopped her. And so for me, it's a blur. I'm going down the driveway. It's a blur. And then the very next thing I remember is looking at myself. I'm above my body, and I'm seeing myself, and I see my eyes roll back and go white. And then everything fades like the end of a movie. And then it opens again, like the beginning of a movie. And I'm sitting on someone, and I'm leaning, and my head's kind of down like this. And I can feel that I'm sitting with someone when I start to get some awareness. And so my mind, I guess if I had a mind at that time, it was like, who is this? What happened? That's basically my first few things that I recollect from that. What happened? Who is this? And I open my eyes, and my head is still kind of like this. I'm kind of looking down, and as I open my eyes, I see hair. And, it's kind of surprising. It's not what you expect, but you see hair, or I see hair, and it's not what you expect to see, I suppose, or I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I see hair, and it's silver and white, and it's almost touching the ground. It's kind of like right above the ground. I see the bottom of a robe, and the robe is like grayish, a little lighter. The hair, though, is like luminescent. And I'm seeing this because I'm kind of facing down when I open my eyes. And it's confusing at first. And so I turn and I'm thinking I'm going to ask this person what happened because I'm thinking I'm sitting on a person. And when I turned to ask what happened, it's a hooded figure of light, and they have no face. There's only light where their face should be, which kind of pauses me for a second. And then I ask, what happened? And then they said, Stephen, you were in an accident. Put your head down. Everything's going to be fine. And so I put my head down and I'm still looking at this being's face now. Just put my head on its chest and I'm kind of like staring at its face. And I remember just having a quick thought, like, how did I talk without talking? Or just a couple quick things like that rolling through, like, how did I speak without actually moving my mouth? And so I'm staring at this being's face. I start to feel pulled, and I'm getting pulled into the light where its face should be. And it's not like it's hard to explain because I didn't go from point A to point B. It was like I was still where I was and I was being stretched like an elastic. And so I go into this being's face and it's all light. I guess you could say kind of like a tunnel, but I don't remember the amount of time, but I feel like we traveled a bit. So I go into the light. I travel for, I don't know how long. It was short, but it was long. It was hard to describe, but I travel and I stop and the scene materializes in front of me. It's almost like it just started appearing in front of me. And it's the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen, the most beautiful meadows, rivers, paths, trees, mountains, nature. And I'm noticing kind of like the colors are vibrating. They're like alive. And I could feel that they were alive. And I see the colors and the flowers, and there's still so many beautiful colors I have yet to see here. Like it pales in comparison. And the vibrancy, it was like stepping into a 4K TV after you lived inside a glass tube television. And now you're in high definition. And everything was alive and it was crisp and it was vibrant. It wasn't dull. I think like we kind of put our mask on here of duality, and I think that kind of dulls it some. But I noticed the colors are vibrating and they're moving and they're alive. And I can sense that. I sense that everything here has free will and it's choosing to be here and it's sovereign and it's free. And so I'm noticing these paths, noticing more, out in the distance. And I start to notice figures, and they're kind of like playing. Um, and I'm like, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And like, as I'm getting interested in what's happening here, I'm starting to feel it. And it's starting to feel like the greatest celebration ever, and the greatest carnival ever. And so I'm noticing these figures. They're playing over here. They're playing over here. They're having fun. Some are in the distance. Some are far away. But I notice an elderly man and a little girl kind of in the distance to my left. And again, hard to describe. They were far away, but they were right next to me. And that's just how it was. And so I noticed they're playing and they're having fun. And this little girl lets out a laugh. And the laugh just goes through the atmosphere and it reaches me and it touches me in the center of my chest. And there was something happened at that point because I knew everything was one, that this was my home. This was where I came from. This is where I'd go back to. Most importantly, I knew that hate and pain and suffering couldn't exist there. It wasn't that it didn't, it couldn't even materialize. And so that as soon as I got this I guess you could say, download, where I knew everything came from this place and it would return to it. As soon as I got that, it was like, okay, I'm home. I want to stay here. And as soon as I expressed the wanting to stay in this beautiful celebration and this vibrancy and these colors and these energies, that's when the being says, it's not your time. We have other things to show you. And as soon as the being said that to me, it was like I could no longer see the being, but they were speaking to me. As soon as the being said that, it was like someone pulled the scene away from me, like a Broadway curtain. And I'm now standing in this dark room. I'm now standing in this dark room. It was like the scene had been pulled away on Broadway. In this dark room, I start to see these blue lines form, and they're going straight up and straight down, and they're going across like a waffle or grid pattern. And they're the same color of my background here, kind of whitish, bluish. And I think to myself, what is this? And I'm answered. And that's when I hear the voice say, this is the quantum field. This is what connects all living beings as one. And I'm like, all right. And I'm just like, this is the experience. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Partially feeling that it's almost like a dreamlike state, but knowing that it's more. So I'm like, okay, this is the quantum field. This connects all living beings together as one. And I see the grid and I see these lines. And I'm noticing these lines in front of me kind of have like blueprints on them. Like I could see around me, like the world, but I could only see the energetic structure of it. So as I'm looking around, I'm seeing, say, see a tree, but it's translucent and I can see the energetic structure, signature. And so I'm in this dark room still. All of this that I'm seeing just fades away. It's like you're standing in a hologram or something. And so that dissipates. I'm in the dark room again. And I notice something up to the left. And it looks like a credit card. And it's missing a corner. And it has circuits on it. Like if anybody's ever seen a motherboard or electronic circuits on a computer. And it's kind of glowing. And I have the thought, what's that? And that's when I'm answered. This is your divine blueprint. This is the original image that you were made in. And everyone has one of these. Basically came to learn later, it was like my restore file. You know, like we buy a laptop at the store and it gets wonky after a while. Well, we're going to hit that factory reset button. And so they tell me this is your divine blueprint. This is your original image you were made in, and everyone has one. And then that image fades. And then a pillar of light comes down straight in front of me. And now it's almost like I'm not seeing it as at ground level. I'm like in a skybox or something because I'm looking down on this pillar of light that comes down in front of me. And then naturally, what's that? That's when the being says, this is you. As you enter the world, and you will spend your energy to have an experience in reality. And as the being says, spend your energy, I see energy leaving the center of this pillar of light, this column of light. It's leaving and it's going out. And then I notice it's depositing in this screen that's kind of like almost all the way around me, but not quite. There's a screen in front of me and I see energy going to this screen. And what's that? And then that's when the voice says, this is the quantum field storing your thoughts, emotions, memories, and experiences. And they said every thought, every emotion, every experience is stored later. When they say this, that this is stored for later, I notice there's beings up on top of this screen And I got the sense that they were some sort of council or judges or something like that. I didn't ask, I didn't receive, but it was like that. And it wasn't like they were saying it was going to be recorded for judgment. It was recorded as part of the experience. Um, it wasn't judgmental at all, but they said all of your thoughts, emotions, and experiences will be recorded in this field as a record. And as I say that, I'm just kind of focused on what's in this screen. Like, can I see what is being deposited in the screen? And all I could see, like, is like, it looks like little TV sets. So there'd be a cord going to the screen that was around me, these beings on top, and this cord went to this little TV set that might contain like a scene or an experience. And now there were still blank spots. There were like some TV sets that were blank or deposited areas that were blank. And then there were some that were filled in with memories and experiences. And so that kind of dissipates after they tell me all my thoughts, feelings, and actions will be recorded in the screen. And I notice these beings up top. That kind of dissipates. It just fades. I'm in this black room again. Or I could say it was almost like being in a night sky, but dimly lit without stars. Wasn't quite black. So the next thing and the last thing that I see during this NDE experience is a triangle. And it's just coming towards me. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it stops in front of me. And what's that? And so the voice says, this is Father, Mother, and Son. Make these three one. And I'm like, ugh. That was a riddle that was in my head for 30 years. Okay, until 2008. So make these three one. Father, Mother, Son. And so I'm seeing this triangle. Then that fades. And then that I wake up and I'm like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And my parents are like, you were in an accident. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. No, that's not what happened. And so I could feel it. It's in me. It's in my cells. I'm emotional. I knew something had happened that didn't feel right. And my parents were like, you were just in an accident. No, that wasn't it. And so 11, I start to get the memories back. I try to talk to my parents. First memory of sitting with this being, what they looked like, talking to them, who they were, things like that. I try to tell my parents, and they had their own things going on. My friends made me feel weird about it. Nobody was interested. And so I learned that it made me feel funny and not to talk about it, and just stuffed it away for quite a while and avoided it, even though I was experiencing visions and like extra sensitivity and things that I could now chalk up to the NDE. But I would have these visions. My parents actually brought me to an eye doctor too. And the eye doctor's like, no, there's nothing wrong with his eyes. This was while I was having these visions that were trying to manifest. And it was almost like when it was trying to manifest, like my brain would be in a million pieces and then I would be back. And so it would show, like I could see fractals in my eyes and different fragments. So that's why I was brought to the eye doctor. But the vision I was having was people. It was people. Now, all these people were all over the place. They're all over the planet. And there's one line that's going through the center of their chest, connecting them all. But some people were lit up and some were not. Some were online and some were offline, even though they were all connected. And so I didn't know what that vision meant as I was having it, but I'd draw it and things like that. And so hiding it, keeping all this stuff to myself, having these thoughts and feelings, not wanting to share them, I learned to numb myself. And that's where I get into the dark part of my story, where I was a teenager and a young man who was trying to be sensitive and all these things that the world says you're not supposed to be as a man. And
Mm-hmm.
so I learned very quickly to not share, to numb how sensitive I was, whether it was substances or other things like that. And it took some bad turns. I flipped the car over at 85 miles an hour 5 times. 3 people ejected from the vehicle. Everyone survived. Everyone got up and walked
Yeah.
away, even though we had no seat belts. And so there was that. There was other incidences, falls and things from really high heights that I had no way to explain how I did not meet my end. And so I also played sports, and I'm going somewhere with this. I also played sports, and so I broke a lot of bones, crashed a lot of cars, crashed 2 motorcycles. So by the time I was 30, I was waking up in such excruciating pain. My joints were stiff. I was the Tin Man. I didn't want to be here anymore. Truthfully, I would wake up and dread getting up and going to work. I was taking pain medication the doctor was giving me. Oh, it's safe. Doctor's giving it to me just to function and go to work. And after quite a few years of that, I was no longer me. And so I got to a dark point in my life where I'm just like, yeah, I'm ready to check out. I am the skeptic. And that's something your viewers should know. I am the one who said, where are you, God? Come on, prove it. And so because I had my experience at 4, I thought if there was a God, he doesn't like me. I wasn't allowed to go here. And now I'm experiencing all this pain and this heartache and childhood trauma. And there was a lot of stuff going on in the house. People chased out of the house with axes and some, other stuff. So as a child, you absorb that and it emulates into your reality from your subconscious mind. So I was in pain. I was in a lot of pain. And I'm like, all right, God, I'm done here. I'm done. Just see you later. I thought I knew I was either hiding or heading towards God or death. And it
Mm-hmm.
was either I'm going to die or I'm going to find God, one or the other. Because it had gotten so dark that I was literally thinking of ways how I could take my life without hurting the people I loved. And this was an everyday thing. And this was around like 2008. Um, so I'm shut down. I'm dark. I hate the world, hate people. I might be a God, but he doesn't like me. Uh, I'm still skeptical at this point. Even though I had an experience, I thought, well, maybe it just happens when you die. It's just something that happened because of what I experienced, and it's over and done with. You don't have to talk about it. So 2008, I go in to have a surgery to clear up scar tissue in my elbow. And that's when I start to get really, really panicked, kind of. And I didn't even really know why. It was just a routine scar tissue thing. Um, and I'm like, I got to leave. And I didn't know why I had to get up and leave, but I had to. And I went to get up. And then that's when the voice spoke to me again for the first time in 30 something years. Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be fine. And I went, what? And because I instantly knew that was the being from my near death, only I'm alive and I'm awake. And so that really twisted my mind right there. So as soon as this being said, Stephen, put your head down, everything's going to be all right, this energy started swirling in my center and it was warm and it spread out and it went all over my body and it literally pushed me back down. That's how strong this energy was. And then immediately I start having these visions and I start having these surges of energy shoot through me. That took a few minutes to quiet down. Then I had not had medication at this point. So I wasn't in there getting medication and going under or anything. I just sat down, just took my clothes off, just sat down and got ready. And so that's the being speaks to me. All these visions start ping, 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 along with these energies surging through me. I calm down. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I have to go in and do this. So I go in and do it. And I come out. few days later, about 2 days later, I wake up in the middle of the night and there's a ball of light in my room. And I'm like, what is that? I'm like looking, I'm like, I don't have a lamp there. I'm looking at the lamp, turning all the lights on and off, looking outside to see if it's cars. It's not any of that. Eventually, you have to go to sleep because you have to work the next morning. So I went to sleep. Next couple nights, there's more balls of light. There's like more than one, and they're just kind of like there, but they're barely kind of like moving at this time. And they're bluish, whitish, plasma type orbs. And so they're there consecutively for quite a few weeks, a few different nights. I have no idea what they want, what they need or anything. Um, then I start to notice while I'm at work, I'm a store manager at a video game store at this point. I start to notice while I'm at work that I'm hearing thoughts in my head, and it's not my voice. And that's what kind of tipped me off. It's not just me. And so I would notice there would be like a lot of conversation when people would come into my store. When they would leave, it would go away. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I started to test theories and methods because I was trying to prove to myself that I wasn't insane at this time. I'm asking people in my mind, do you want a bag with that? And then I'd ask them out loud, do you want a bag with that? I would compare the two, see what they said. And yeah, I was having telepathy at
Mm.
the time. So I'm experiencing telepathy after these balls of light. Then I start to have where people would walk in and I'd feel the pain on my body. And I'd be like, oh man, what's going on? I just felt fine. And then the person would leave and I'd be perfectly fine.
Mm.
This happened for weeks and months until I got brave enough to say, hey, you got pain in your knee? Hey, you got pain here? And the because I got super curious about what was happening, and the quite a few people were like, yeah. And then the other people who didn't answer me simply turned around and walked right out. And then I must have freaked them out or something. So I'm having telepathy. I'm now feeling people's pain. This progresses to hunger. And I know that's not one people experience very much, but I could feel like I could eat a full lunch, two lunches, and someone, if they were hungry and walk, I would start to get gut wrenchingly hungry again.
Mm.
And I didn't know what it was until I asked people, hey, you hungry? Yeah. And so that was a whole wild experience in itself. And so one day I'm standing at the wall and I'm doing marketing and I'm like laughing for no reason and I'm crying for no reason and I'm laughing and I'm crying and then and my assistant manager who I hired, he's like, what is wrong with you, dude? And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I was also turning like bright red and sweating randomly. So still at the video game store, I go on lunch one day, and this was during the time when I was having a lot of distortions, a lot of things happening. So I go to the store and I get into the store, and there's a man standing with his son, and the son goes, "Can I have a candy bar?" It was actually a peanut butter cup. Might be another brand, so I'm not violating any copy marks. So copyright. He goes out of line and he grabs the peanut butter cup and he shows it to his father. And he goes, "Yeah, you can have it." Gets back in line. Then he gets out of line again, picks it up. "Can I have this?" "Yeah," but he didn't grab two. He didn't ask for another one. It was the same exact scene that I had just witnessed. And so I pay for my gas and I'm like, I don't know if I got to go to the hospital today. And that was my thought when I went out to the car. When I turned the car on, it was on the radio already. And there's a contest, and the woman's talking about the answer and whatever. And okay, yeah, they're laughing. Then the next thing I know is the phone's ringing on the radio. And the woman is on the radio. They answer the phone and they ask her the question, but I know the answer because I just heard it 3 seconds ago. And so that's when I was like, wow. Went back to work. Um, that's when I'm starting to get a little like weird. My family's wondering what's going on. Um, Next thing I noticed is there's energy beings around me.
Mm.
And that was really startling. When I be sleeping and I'm like, did I just see something move? Did I just see something move? And there'd be things passing by the light. And at first it was very faint. And eventually it got to the point where it was full blown apparitions. So now here you are being pushed to be a medium or whatever this is without any training, without any knowing what's going on. Um, so I start to notice there's these apparitions moving around me all the time. I think I'm being haunted. I'm like, leave me alone, get away. And yes, some of them aren't nice. And then some of them were beautiful, you know. And at first, I think I'm being haunted. So I'm like, leave me alone and everything. And that's when I get the first visit. So let me back up a bit as I'm going through the what I am at GameStop, where I'm also having this energy in me. It's almost like someone hit a switch on a reactor, and it was like this was during the time I'm starting to notice these apparitions too. I'm having this huge surge of energy, and it's like being a kid on Christmas or waiting for the greatest celebration ever times 1,000, but I couldn't shut it off. I couldn't regulate it. So I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks. And this was when this right after this being had first spoken to me. And so I'm charged, supercharged, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And so these apparitions are around me. I'm thinking they're haunting me, leave me alone, et cetera, et cetera. That's when the breakthrough happens, when I'm sitting there and I'm eating a bowl of Cheerios, and don't know why that's relevant, but apparently it is. I'm eating a bowl of Cheerios, and I notice the pressure in my room changes, and I notice there's an energy in the corner of my room, and it almost looks like it's like it's a bad reference, but if anybody's ever seen the movie Predator when he cloaks himself, kind of like that, but not entirely. But I knew they were there, and I could see that there was something there. And I look over, and that's when these beings introduce themselves. They say, we're from the Galactic Federation of Light, we're Arcturians, and we are part of the Divine Council of Nine. Uh, we're here to help you with your ascension because you're going to help the human species in its next stage of evolution. And I'm like, what? I'm like, literally, what? I can't even organize my own life. And so they're like, you're going to help humanity in its next stage of evolution. And that's when they say humans are being brought into a more unified energetic state and will be able to absorb more energy and need less sustenance, less material, mass, whatever you want to call it. We'll be able to sustain ourselves on more energy. And then they tell me there's going to be some things happening in the world that I'm not going to understand. This was before COVID. This was before all the things. I was going to see natural disasters that wouldn't make sense. I was going to see, um, I hate to go biblical here, but I was going to see some of the four horsemen coming in non-religious terms, in the spread of parasites and diseases or famine, or, so I was going to see that stuff ramp up. And what they told me was, you're going to see a lot of calamity and the world's going to appear backwards, but it's actually going through a cleansing. And this is why it's going to appear to be very disorganized. And now, as the world's going through, as it's cleansing, you are also going to go through a purification and a cleansing. Um, and so that was most of the info that they had given me at first. And then I said, I'm pretty sure you got the wrong guy. You can leave me alone now. And they left. And I picked up my phone, And I went, Galactic Federation of Light, blah, 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 blah. And there it was, Divine Council of Nine, Galactic Federation of Light, and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, maybe this is real. Maybe I'm not crazy. So during this time, I'm going out and I'm getting Bibles. I'm getting all these spiritual books and I'm bringing them home and I'm reading them because I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with me or what is happening to me. And so they come, I check this information, and maybe it's real. Again, I'm the skeptic. Maybe it's real. And then that's the start of, you could say, extraterrestrial teaching about 0 point energy, because the next time they came back, they wanted to talk about the Trinity and the divine blueprint that I had seen during my NDE. And then that was when I started to realize that's what that was. That's what that was. And what I had seen during my NDE was known as a triangle singularity, which is a very advanced quantum physics theory. But what they were telling me immediately when they came back the second time, I was more receptive after I had seen some of this information. They said you need to reconnect to the Trinity, and I said, as in Father, Mother, Son. They said yes, but this is also heaven, earth, sun. This is also mind, heart, body. This is also positive, negative, neutral. There is a circuit within you that of life force energy that needs to be completed because you're being short circuited by your trauma and your experiences that you stored in your body, your judgments on yourself, et cetera, et cetera. And so they started to guide me. And the very first guidance they gave me was watch and learn how to match your thoughts with how you feel, and then match how you feel with your actions. And don't settle for anything outside of those margins. And that was the beginning of coming into authenticity and learning how to work with truth as an energy. So they began guiding me to learn how to tune my divine instrument, my mind, my heart, and my body to work together with truth. This brought me into a knowing. And then they were teaching me how to speak to the cells of the body as if something was already finished and begin to reprogram the pain in my body and the other experiences that I had. So the second time they're talking about the Trinity, that it's a circuit that needs to be completed. That circuit won't be completed if my thoughts don't match how I feel and my actions aren't indicative of truth. And so this stuff has to be, I have to honor truth within myself for myself. So there was a period of time where I was doing that, and they mentioned the divine blueprint, and they said the divine blueprint, the image that you were made in, the original image that you saw during your NDE, you need to believe you are this. You are not the fragmented identities in the minds of others that you've experienced through this journey of human life. So they were teaching me about fragmentation and defragmentation of data, literal data. And they told me that I needed to believe that I am the image of creator that I was made in, and then know it. And they said this image was already in my subconscious mind. It's already in my DNA to reunite my conscious and subconscious mind together as one. Because the subconscious is where we're controlled. That's where we're short-circuited out of the body. And so they were teaching me to reconnect to my divine blueprint and anchor my identity. This is all a game of identity and attachment. Anchor my identity in something above the world, because then the world can't attach to it. And the world can't modulate my identity. And so there was a lot about identity and reclaiming my sovereign identity as a being of energy. And so they come back the second time, it's Trinity. They're teaching me how to tune my heart and mind and body, gut to work together with truth. They talk about the divine blueprint. They talk a little bit about the quantum field and quantum entanglement and how we are all affecting one another when we're passing on our pain to each other, and when we're not alchemizing or transmuting or transforming it within ourselves, that we kind of become stuck because we've gotten so used to this mechanism of passing pain. So they start to teach me how to do alchemy, and about the torus or the toroidal field in my heart. They start to teach me about duality and non-duality, and they have me speaking to my body every single morning, every single night, to remind it that it already is, and that any feedback that doesn't match that, to simply say thank you for your opinion. And same thing when my mind, if it goes off the rails throughout the day, thank you for what you're teaching me. I send you into the heart space with gratitude. So they were teaching me how to rewire my nervous system so that I can embody and sustain my higher self in the moment of now, because that's where my healing was. And so when they would visit me, I'd have no pain in my body. And I was noticing that. And then when they would leave, it would return. And then they'd kind of let me go, do your homework thing. Each time I noticed that, I would feel that love in me again of heaven. And I was like, oh, there it is. I don't ever want to leave that. And then I was like, son of a, when it would leave, then I learned how to not do that. And, so at first your reaction's like, then I learned it was really about my free will of learning how to travel between dimensions with my mind and my heart. And so slowly they're teaching me that you are the energy that feels your emotions, that you are not your emotions, and how not to attach and to be the observer. So there was some time building identity, claiming sovereignty, releasing patterns, releasing things. But each time, again, they visited me, I could feel that heavenly space, and it would leave. And then there was this one time I'm sitting outside in my yard. Okay. I'm just sitting in a lawn chair. I'm watching the stars. I'm just sitting there. All of a sudden, I'm getting lifted out of body. I can't even feel the chair anymore. I'm in this white light. I am this white light. And it was the same in heaven, like that love. I became it. I was it. And so I'm lifted into this white light. And then these beings speak to me and they say, we're the Sidriel. Okay. That means nothing to me at the time, until further research. And then that's when they say you're an energy that logged in to have this experience in reality as a human. But you're an actor. They're like, don't forget that you're an actor, that you're an energy having a material experience. That's when they start teaching me how to make positive and negative one and unify fields. So they get really like technical, and they start teaching me that the body has two currents, but they go out of balance because of what we experience, and we store too much emotion. So they're teaching me about polarity, and that when my polarity had gone out of balance, this feedback loop came running back through me, and I had mistaken myself for this distortion. And so they started teaching me how to not store emotions and processing them in real time, then also how to fuse the positive and the negative currents in my body into one to create 0 point energy. And so they're teaching me, as they're teaching me, they're like, your body is like a salt and potassium battery, and you're running energies through your body, but they're being somewhat short-circuited into alternate realities by your trauma. So you need to go there and acknowledge it with gratitude and love, and pull everything back into the now. And so they gave me a protocol to call all of my multidimensional energy back into the moment of now through my heart space to unify the fragmented selves. So there's quite a few years of like 7-8 years of them visiting me and teaching me how to use energy to not only my own natural energy, how to first tune myself, cultivate, and then sustain so that my body would heal itself. And then slowly they learned, or I learned, because they taught me how to connect to others through the quantum field. So now, this whole doing this for work thing, I never saw myself doing it. It started with, like, somebody personal who I was sharing things that were happening to me with. They're like, hey, you might be able to help this person, or you might be able to help that person. So I'm like, well, I'll try. Sure. And I was doing that. And then it slowly snowballed, because of the effects. And I've had clients who, and I'm not even going into the Jesus visitations or anything like that, but he's the coolest guy ever. And it started to be where it snowballed, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I can do some good in the world, because I wasn't crazy about my character who hated the world. And they were slowly teaching me, also about how my identity had been kind of trapped in time by trauma. They taught me a little bit about beings that were like multidimensional hackers that were in the quantum field that just want to harvest our energy, and they want us spinning in loops. And so that's what storing trauma in the cells of my body is going to do. It's going to short circuit my potential to heal, to gather enough energy to allow my body to heal. And so I speak, and this was all guided by them. You are uninstalled through the Christ, or through my heart space, and I reinstall a program of divine love into my cells. And then that's something people can try right away. But they visited me over the course of years, and mind-bending experiences. And so I was having clients who were starting to have visions of, like, Jesus, extraterrestrials, and all these other things, and angels, and they were a part of it. When I asked this being, who they were, Elohim was the word. And then I understood that they were angelic beings. So slowly they're teaching me how to heal. I'm trying to help people. Then one day everything changes. Change my job, change everything. I have this woman fall down outside in front of my store. She's an elderly woman. She hits the cement. She's in pain. She's moaning and of course crying. And I'm the first one there. I see her. Someone else comes out next door. I say, go call the ambulance. I'll stay here. I'm staying there with her. And I put my hand on her back, and she turns to me and she goes, I don't feel any pain. I'm all warm. And I was like, what? And I felt as soon as she said that, I felt the warm go up my arm. And then I was like, I don't know what that was, but I went back to work, and my mind didn't stop racing. I went home, and hands on healing, miracles, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking up everything I could, because I didn't even know it was possible at the time. I'm just walking through the experience of all this supernatural stuff starting to happen. So that started with me thinking, okay, I got something coming through me that I need to give people. But I had witnessed, that was my first real taste of real world. Okay, this is real. That did just happen. And so I don't want to get too far off base here. And so that happens at work. I changed my job. I couldn't be there anymore. It was just too much to process. Like, there were so many energies going on. I go into senior care, Alzheimer's, dementia. Beautiful. Then I realized one day when I'm not happy at work, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can never move forward until I'm grateful for where I am now, because I was not in my body. And that's what trauma does to us. It keeps us out of our body, and locked up in another space. And so that was when the journey really changed. I went, oh my goodness. I'm looking at all these elderly people that I cared for. I said, that's God in there. That's creator in there. That's creator in there. I'm like, wait a minute. Now I got to do a really good job, because I'm caring for my creator. And that's when everything became my creator. I'm like, it's everywhere. It's part of me. And so back to the apparitions, right? I mentioned I was seeing apparitions come and go. Arcturians visit me, and they tell me, this is what helped me with my fear at the time, because I was really like afraid. They tell me this is happening through you. It's not happening to you. You are the instrument, but you're out of tune. And, that's when I get the vision of like a garage instrument that's like a guitar somebody threw in a garage or something. And so that's when they gave me the instruction: match thoughts with feelings, match feelings with actions. And if you're going to have a thought and not act on it, then it's not worth anything. Just don't have it. And so they're really teaching me how to streamline the data that was being rendered into my reality. And then when I was lifted out of the chair in my yard, and I went back into my chair, they were also explaining that you're the programmer. You're the actor, writer, and director now. You're not just the actor who got handed a script and you got to do what you're told anymore. You are now the programmer of your experience. It's up to you to do the programming. And so I got very curious about what made me tick. We'll say instinctual. Okay, so human urges, right? We walk around every day. We look at each other in a sexual way. Men especially, they're so trained to look at a woman in that way. And I'm like, why? And that's what really interested me. If I'm not in charge of deciding how I see people, who is? And then that's when I got really curious about, lust or eating or hunger or basic human instincts that I did not have a say in. That's when I went really deep into purification. And I was getting out of work. I was going into nature. I was purifying in hot baths and a lot to really unify the two currents that were going through me of duality, so that I was no longer separated from myself. And so, yeah, there's so much that I could go on. Do you want to ask any questions or anything?
You know what, Steve, normally I would, but listening to you, it's been very intriguing. And without you knowing, I'm actually experiencing some inner healing right now. So I'm someone that has significant trauma from religion. I grew up Hindu, then I became a Christian, but both those religions, I did not experience them as a very healthy way of connecting to God. So, and I've done a lot of work. And this is not about me, but I have to say that I have experienced a lot of healing just now listening to you. There was a lot of truth that came out of you that resonated with me. And I have made up my mind that after I'm done and after it's published, I'll probably be the one to go back and listen and make notes. It's a lot to process and digest
It is.
because you're
I
bringing,
mean,
yes.
they told me I had a sun in the center of my chest. SUN. And that this was a stargate, but this was also the Christ and what Jesus was trying to show us and how the message got hijacked.
And when you talk about that, right? When you talked about uninstalling and then reinstalling, right? I had almost given up on my faith. I walked away from the institution, and I'm talking about the Christian faith. But it's really funny because I had a mystical experience with Jesus that helped me reprogram that part of my faith where I still love him, but I've had to reject the things that are not serving that that faith, right? So it's funny
Of
you mentioned
course,
that.
I became a purveyor of frequency and tone. And, if you're giving me guilt and you're giving me guilt and shame and whatever, I already know you're not coming from my creator.
No, so it's bye-bye, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I still, while listening to you, I realized, well, there was still some work need to be done. And some of the truths you were talking about, like regulating your nervous system, like aligning
Yeah.
with your heart, mind, and actions, like so much of that gets hijacked because we're told what to do, how to think,
Mm-hmm. But the vulnerability is going to be an identity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get hijacked when I have a vulnerability in knowing myself
Right.
as a sovereign being, as a being who was already free. I already had my identity when I came here. You don't
Yeah.
have jack squat to say about it. I
Yeah.
can share my identity with you, but you will never be able to give me my identity because you can't even fathom what I am in your mind. You only have a human mind, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then
And
that's in a non egotistical way because it took me years to free my nervous system from trauma. It's where I
yeah.
got to the point where I will not allow you in if you're trying to modulate my identity outside of how I see myself. Then I see what you are.
Right. And it's therefore it's so important to get anchored in that identity, right? And I think that's like the value of what you're doing. Even sharing your story. I am curious when you became comfortable starting to talk about it openly, because I had very, like mine is nothing. Like, trust me, it's a little bit of experience, but it took me years to get that confidence to talk about it, right? And yours is like these big, big ones, which are, not every day. So
Well, when
what?
I went to North Carolina and I met you, that was the first public in person I had done.
Wow. And
Even
I
though
got
people
to,
were like, oh, and I'm like, I'm grading myself here now. So I think I
awesome.
got to a point where I realized that it was about my story between myself and creator, and that I loved creator enough to tell our story,
Uh-huh.
regardless of anybody else. Because I still get attacked, of course, because, I'm mentioning Christ and whatnot,
Yeah,
and extraterrestrials, and, because people aren't understanding it in
I
the way that
know.
I experienced it. So I got to the point where I knew I needed to tell our story, and
Hmm.
that it was about what I was doing for creator more so.
Yeah, and I appreciate that very much because that's what helped me to get past my mental blocks and start talking about my story too. Because then I think about, I would have never heard your story if you hadn't shared it, right?
Yeah,
And
it was
that,
like 2020 when I started being public. Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for doing that because you just never know who you're talking to. And for all 10, if 10 people don't believe us, but the one person that does and they get some sort of comfort or healing, that's worth it.
Yeah, I can tell people I didn't believe me. If I met me 10 years ago, I would have said, dude, you're out there. But
Yeah.
having witnessed the healings, because it's years later now, and what happens to the human body when we all connect as
Hmm.
one,
Hmm.
man, that's where it's at. It's like we're all the energy of love. Let's try to modulate ourselves back to that frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So I had
Yeah.
people like somebody contacted me in Canada, and I have a child in the hospital, and they're sick, and they're on oxygen, and I'm like, yeah, of course, let me try at least. And the
Mhm.
next day, oxygen level goes up off the ventilator, going home.
Yeah.
I'm like, greatest feeling in the world if I can feel that and do good and say, hey, I didn't do that for you. Creator did that for you. Now go have a relationship with your creator. I
Yes.
just allowed it to happen through me.
Yes.
Um, I think that's where I feel most at peace.
That's your and I don't want to use a religious word, but I don't know another word. It's like that's your calling, like
Yeah.
that's what
I
you
think I'm not special. I'll be the
yeah.
first to tell everybody I'm not special, that I saw something we're all connected to,
Yeah.
that I had experienced angelic
Sure.
beings, demonic beings, and all these other things. But
Yeah.
that ultimately I had the authority and the say what gets rendered into my reality. And then we'll
Hmm.
go even into physical pain. So, as we're looking at the mechanism where I grew up, never done any healing, I have a brain to body signal now. Brain to
Hmm.
body. Why? Because I was in survival mode and I wanted to bypass feeling because it was safer. Now
Hmm.
I've created this brain to body. That's why I'm in pain. This signal needs to be rewired and corrected to a brain heart body signal. This is why people are outside thinking about all the past things and in the future with fear and worry and have so much pain in their body, because the signal is not supposed to be uh, it's not supposed to be rolling through your body. It's supposed to be processed through the field of your heart and transformed and grounded into coherent energy before it reaches a state of physical manifestation. And so
Hmm.
you are the modulator of that. I am the modulator of this pain signal in my knee. What I'm going to do to it is I'm going to say, man, I love you. Thank you. Every single cell in this knee is a beautiful child that
Mhm.
is loved and worthy and whole. Thank
Mhm.
you for what you're teaching me, pain in my knee. But
Mhm.
guess what? I'm already whole. I'm
Mhm.
already loved. I'm already sovereign. I'm already forgiven. And so that is where we get into working with love and truth. And
Mhm.
those are the two most important things I can tell people. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're doing it with love and truth.
Yeah.
That's going to reward you exponentially.
Yes, that's awesome, Steve. Because, healing, it can be a very, like I said, I'm passionate about teaching people about lifestyle, food. It's mind, body, spirit. It's all of
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Yeah.
while you were talking, actually, even before I got on the call, I just happened to open my journal. And the page that it fell on was this aha moment that I had had about healing. So, how appropriate is that? And then I read it and I said, oh, I have to mention this and ask you your thoughts on this.
Sure.
It was about a story I'd read in the Bible about Jesus healing a blind man, but
Mm-hmm.
instead of just speaking the healing which he was doing for others, he put some mud on his eyes and then he asked him
Mm-hmm.
to go wash it off. And then I wrote in my journal, oh, so we participate in our own healing, you
Yep.
know? And
You don't know
so,
how many times I've asked people to do stuff that they needed to do and they wouldn't do it. And I'm
because
like, well, this is you you're moving deeper into your heart and into
yeah,
action. Yeah.
action, right? When you kept talking about action, I was like, wow, he could have just said, be healed. I mean, he did that sometimes, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
hear that in the
Of
story.
course. Yeah.
But no, this time he's like, go wash this. I'm like, why?
And that's who I want to emulate, man. And I've seen and witnessed. I want people to think of him when I'm gone, and for my work to live on, and
Yes,
for this
yeah,
Trinity protocol where I'm giving to my clients where they can tune their mind, heart, and body to return to their divine sovereignty. I would love for that to live on.
yeah.
Uh,
And I just want you to know, as someone myself who's had religious trauma, I find your work very healing. Like I love it. I appreciate you very much. I mean, there are things I could keep going on and on about your NDE as well, but like I said, I probably will watch this and take notes, and you
yeah.
might get a question on Facebook from me or something. But
Yeah, I've come to live in the NDE world more than 3D. It's like
uh-huh.
I understand no matter what I'm seeing on the surface behind it is tone and frequency.
Yeah.
Um, and I became very particular about what I believe and what I allow to be downloaded into my subconscious programs because I know eventually it's going to be rendered into my reality. So I have to be the gatekeeper of what comes in and what gets created.
Yes, absolutely. Especially these days. And I shouldn't be saying this because I have a podcast and, there's so many people doing YouTube and other things, but we do need to filter that information.
We
And
do. And I
yeah,
filter it through the Christ. I'm like,
yes.
spam blocker, baby.
I
You're going to
love
block.
that.
And not only is it going to block the spam by filtering everything through my heart and simply saying you need to go here to be processed, but it's also going to not accumulate that real big, thick bandwidth of backlog of information that I need to get to. Because
Yes.
that's what happens. We just store these files for later. Well, you're probably not going to get to it later.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's going to render somehow into your reality to become real so that you
Hmm.
do get to it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's what I always look for too. Is it making me more loving? Is it giving me more peace? Like those are
Mm-hmm.
some of the Christ energies that I'm, using as a
Yes.
filter.
I was just telling a client that yesterday. I'm like, does it make you feel more loving? Does it make you feel more peaceful?
Yeah.
Uh, because some people have a tendency to really go outside themselves, outside. They're all about the aliens, and they're all about Atlas 3I, and they're about this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, me as a person who knew they had to go within, I simply asked them, how's this helping you heal?
Yes. And I think that is the end game. I think that is the end game, the wholeness, the well-being. That's what
Mm-hmm.
lights us up. And I think that's what it's about, to keep
And
that.
they're already here. Extraterrestrial beings are already interacting with us. However, they're not going to be interacting on a wide scale until we are more unified with themselves, because they're not
Right.
going to cause trauma. They're
No.
not going to come and cause trauma and fear.
Yeah.
So we don't even need to be more unified as nations, though it'd be nice. We need to be more unified within ourselves in order to accept everything that comes with the revelation of living with extraterrestrial beings.
Mm-hmm.
But disclosure, yeah, of course, we
Yeah.
see it. It's happening.
Yeah.
They're certainly real, but I'll tell you, they've been here for a while.
Yes. Yes. We have to have our radars and our receivers. But also, the one last thing I do want to mention, a couple of
Mhm.
things before we close, because our time is ending and I want to
Sure.
respect your time too. Um, the whole journey for discovering your gifts of healing and using it, I really appreciate that it was a learning curve for you as well, because a lot of times I think these gifts are given freely, but when we are ourselves going through the pain and that journey, I think as
Mm-hmm.
a healer, that's very important. And I appreciate that. I mean, I know you had no control over it, but I do appreciate that
Yeah.
you had those experiences.
And I stand here as someone who used to be in a tremendous amount of pain, and this was in my 30s, and now I'm 50, to someone who has basically no pain in my body because I've learned how to rewire,
Yeah,
depolarize my nervous system, how to process the energies that come in,
yeah,
emotional charge, and things like that. And I think it's so vital to people to understand that your life force energy, man, you're
yeah.
moving through creation. You're not the body, you're
Mhm.
the energy in the body, and you're going to pick up little static interference, and you really want to just acknowledge every part of yourself with gentleness and love,
Absolutely.
and the parts of you that you want to push away and say, this feels uncomfortable, I don't like it, you're pushing away the inner child in you who was already wounded, and so
Hmm.
you're separating yourself from yourself further. So by saying to the anxiety, the fear, and the worry, and the stress, thank you. I see you. I love you. I know you're scared, but you're safe. This is going to
Hmm.
keep you a lot more unified within yourself, less pain in the body, more
Yeah.
grounded. And so I didn't mention the rewiring, the upgrade, the evolution was taking us from this alternating current where we're polarized and we're shifted constantly
Mhm.
without my consent, mind you, using my fragmented identities. We were going from an alternating current to a direct current, which is a stationary ground state that unifies both positive and negative, 0 point state. And so, in essence, we're 0 point energy. We just get a lot of programming coming in, and that tends to tip us towards the dark side a little. But
Yeah.
we can uninstall it, reinstall our own, and return to the light.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And if people want to connect with you and find out more about your work, like how is the best way, I will use the links that you provided. I'll put that in the show notes, but let us know the best way to reach you.
Sure. You can reach out to me at trinityquantumhealth.com.
Okay. And I'll definitely make sure to have that in the show notes, Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time.